This is Cliff Wilson. By way of introduction, I should state I have been involved in politics and public service my entire adult life. Elected a member of the state legislature in New York in 1976, after my move to Pennsylvania, I served from 1994 through June of 2010 as chairman of the Delaware County Democratic Party. I've come to the conclusion that the political party structure in the United States is an anachronistic irrelevancy. The party structure is based on precinct, municipal, county, and state committees, with boundaries often drawn in the 19th century, based on rivers and streams and the ability of a horse-drawn carriage to reach the central meeting place in sufficient time to allow a meeting. Party structure was codified by most states at the beginning of the 20th century, before the inception of the direct primary, by which the people chose the party candidates. It has now become a group of permanently involved party activists who meet to choose offices and delegates to larger meetings who meet to choose offices. This act of self-preservation occurs every 2 or 4 years. Former Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell has pronounced his verdict on the state party structure, quote, "They have no significance, no political power, no punch." In fact, just this past weekend, the Pennsylvania State Committee met, and all they could agree upon was not to recommend any of the Senate or Attorney General candidates running in the primary. Incredible. This anachronistic structure is out of step in every way in the 21st century. A system designed shortly after Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone has no structural relevancy to a society that communicates using smartphones, the internet, Instagram, and varying and always developing modes of social media. Today's generations are more open to political discussion in chat rooms than following the dictates of bosses meeting in back rooms. Whether this country continues as a two-party democracy or a multi-party democracy, it must find a way to prevent oligarchs from creating a plutocracy. One way to do that is to create a 21st century party modality. That party infrastructure must be based not on geography. When our population today is so mobile that few live in the same precinct or even municipality more than a half dozen years, nor on single issues. It must be based on a general sharing of political values, liberal, conservative, centrist, socialist, green, libertarian. It must be grassroots in its membership, open to all and funded by all, and it must rally behind candidates that reflect its values. I would say we need a new political structure, but nothing in history is new. Before the Civil War, our political parties were much less structured and often consisted of rallies and county conventions of like-minded folk. Our politicians practiced a politics of civility when in office and governing, and hardball on the campaign trail. And of course, we all know there was a time when politics stopped at the water's edge. Since 1994 and the Gingrich Revolution and the advent of Fox News, we have become a nation of the politics of personal destruction. All actions are reactions. All politics, instead of being local, is now just mean and nasty. From the end of the Civil War until 1896, the democracy, as it was called, was the party of the South and northern city machines, built on immigrant votes. Actually, a Republican put it best when he called the Democrats the party of Romanism and rebellion. In 1896, from the West, came a great tide of populism, anti-monopoly and anti-Wall Street, advocating direct election of U.S. senators, an initiative and referendum along with labor reform, and opposition to imperialist adventures. When the Bryan populists merged with the urban progressives and won the election of Woodrow Wilson, the Democratic Party became essentially a progressive party, with a Southern component that on economic issues was somewhat progressive. And so the Democratic Party, as FDR unfolded his New Deal, became the party of progressive economic and social reform and world leadership. In battles within the party against conservative Southern segregationists, the moderate liberals won out, and the party was in a liberal mold through the 1960s. Today, there is a Democratic Party that is clearly liberal and majority progressive. On social issues, most Democrats are pro-choice, pro-equal rights, pro-world leadership, and there are a few who do not give at least lip service to liberal economic values. For example, Social Security, affordable health care for all, regulations to stop air pollution and to rein in big banks. In its attempt to be all things to all component constituent groups, with a center-left bent, it has become a party that is defined by what it defends when the radical right-wing Tea Party Republicans attack government, rather than what it stands for. Democrats need to do more than defend against Republican attacks on Social Security and oppose their privatization schemes. Democrats must support strengthening Social Security by extending the wage tax to all employment income, not just the current first 108,000, which effectively allows the lower end of the upper class to finance their own retirement plans while keeping the rest of us worried about whether we'll have Social Security in the future. Democrats need to support increasing the benefits of Social Security. Expand and strengthen Social Security should be the Democratic bumper sticker. Democrats need to do more than blame Republican gridlock for lack of immigration reform. The Democratic Party should insist on and support our president using his constitutional power to pardon, to grant what in effect would amount to amnesty to the 12 million undocumented persons in the nation today, and then advocate a reform of the legal immigration system. Democrats need to become advocates across the nation for the nonpartisan reapportionment of legislative districts. The California system of nonpartisan primaries that results in contests in general elections in so-called one-party districts and direct election of the President of the United States need to be our new causes. We don't need delegates, super or regular, and we don't need electors. We simply need to let the people choose the president. Democrats need to do more than fight Republican attempts to suppress the vote. Our party needs to work, talk, and march for a restoration of Voting Rights Act, expansion of the electorate by including 17-year-olds, let early voting, use of mail, simplification of absentee ballot procedures, and same-day registration and voting become the national positions of our party. Democrats need to do more than compromise with moderate Republicans, if they can find any, to pass watered-down economic reform measures. We Democrats need to stand for another New Deal, for a restoration of the American dream, for a large, vibrant middle class. We bailed out the big banks and General Motors. We need to bail out an entire generation of student debtors who will never realize the American dream if they have to spend their time and earn income paying off educational mortgages instead of home mortgages. Democracy is too important to be left to politicians. For our democratic system to work, we must have an engaged citizenry. People of all professions and occupations, of all ethnic groups, must seek and hold public office. We must prevent the creation of a class of professional politicians holding their offices for a lifetime and then leaving them to relatives. And the influence of money must be rejected by a national determination to reject a government controlled by the richest plutocrats. My generation may be too old to bring back the American democratic system and revise the party system that made that governing system work. And my generation's children may be too cynical after Watergate in Iraq to care enough about politics to do what needs to be done. If we give them a future to believe in, my grandchildren's generation, growing up now, seeing an America that accepts its diversity and leads for peace and progress in the world, may reclaim the democracy which our founding fathers gave us and make it work again. In 1776, America began what became more than 2 centuries of struggle to secure the benefits of democracy for all people. If this planet is to survive the dual threat of global warming and nuclear destruction, if mankind is to continue its inexorable march toward a life of dignity for all, then America must show and lead the way. This is Cliff Wilson reminding you that politics is too important to be left to politicians.